pray for rain, you gotta deal with mud too. That's a part of it. I'd be more frightened by not using the abilities that are given to me. I'd be more frightened by procrastination and laziness. This quote was said by the great Denzel Washington, one of the greatest actors living today. This quote speaks to me to my speeches. Sometimes we pray for good things for us to happen, but at the same time we forget that there are obstacles placed in front of us and that we have to face them. And when it's all said and done, the results and rewards are based on how hard we worked to get the job done or to have it achieved in our dreams. Working in the film industry requires a great deal of determination. So today we will first look at how difficult it is for a newcomer to get noticed by film producers. Then we will examine the training that most professionals undertake in order to get more successful in the business. And then we will explore some of the alternative ways for a newcomer to get into the industry. So how difficult is it for someone to get into the film industry? Well, before we answer that question, we need to understand that it is difficult to get into the film industry. In reality, the chances of a film producer, a film actor, or a director to get into the film industry are about the same chances as a pitcher pitching a perfect game every year. But the chances are better than Hillary Clinton ever telling the truth.
That's a double joke right there.
Unfortunately, not everyone will get famous in their first directorial debut or their first starring role. It can take months, it can even take years before someone can get as famous as other people. Unfortunately, there are many people that are already there. They're already first in line and doing the same thing as the newcomer is trying to do. Another reason why it's so difficult is family. If a person is born in a family that was raised in the film industry, they're already ahead of people who aren't born in families in the film industry. They already know, they're famous, and they're already shoved into the industry. An example of that is right here. This is actor Nicolas Cage, and this is director Francis Ford Coppola. And he's the director behind the Godfather trilogy and Apocalypse Now. And he is actually Cage's uncle. And when you're the nephew of a director like that, you have a good chance of getting into the film industry. Another one is, of course, obstacles. In the film blog called Film Stop, a person talked about the tips that Steven Spielberg puts out to the people who want to get into the film industry. He said that one of the greatest fears that he had, one of the greatest obstacles that he had to face was the failure of rejection and failure. He was actually rejected from the film school in UCLA, which really, which was at that time, he realized that he was uncertain of his future. Of course, we know how that happened, what happened then, because he's not considered one of the greatest of all time. Now we know now we know why it's so difficult to get into the film industry. We will now examine the training that most undertake in order to become famous. Even people in the film industry need training. Even though the industry doesn't create the most jobs in the world, it does give more training for people like that. In the book, Producers and Directors, they state that the bachelor's degree is the most typical state of education what somebody that wants to get into the film industry can take. And it's mostly for producers and directors. The book also states that studying for film and cinema is very common among people who want to get into the industry. And you can also study communications and also writing. Now we've learned some of the training that's needed for people who want to get into the film industry. Let's see and explore some alternative ways in which a young filmmaker could break into the industry. In the book, in the article, How to Become a Film Director, a Sharp Reality, they state that there are two overall distinctive ways to get into the film industry. One is to be hired by a film producer. This way is not easy, and the chance of becoming famous is slim because you're shoved right into the mainstream. But your film is financed, and it is shown in theaters, shown to thousands, even millions of people. The other route is the independent route, which is where you don't get your movie financed. Only a few hundred see it, which is usually in film festivals. But the good news is that if it gains popularity, the person behind the film and the actors will get recognized by the film producers. A great example is the movie Memento. This is an example of a movie that was an independent film, but at the end of its run, it actually gained so much popularity that it made itself into the mainstream, and it propelled Christopher Nolan, who directed the movie, into mainstream. Today we've learned how difficult it is for a newcomer to get noticed by the film producers. I examined the training that most professionals need to undertake in order to get more successful. And then finally we examined some of the alternative ways for a film producer or director to get into the film industry. Breaking into the film industry requires a great deal of determination. In the quote said by Denzel Washington, it defines what it takes to become successful in the film industry. When someone prays for something like wanting to get his first film made, they have to go through the mud. Financial problems and critics, crew, cast, and problems, and many more. People can't be lazy and waste time, because if they go into the mindset, it won't be good. People who have the heart and majestic mind, plus the hard work ethic, will get famous. How do I know? I'm that person. I want to be famous as a filmmaker. I don't want to get into it for the money. I want to get it for sharing the stories and be able to do it. Will I be successful in the first time? No. Will I get my first Oscar in my first film? Probably not. But if you have the mindset and the creative mind, the rewards will be endless.